Naomi, how did you find carnivore?
It was the same way I've heard a lot of people talk about how they discovered it, which was the Michaela Peterson interview with Joe Rogan. And I had never heard of the concept before. It was completely foreign to me. And I think I had seen her interviewed about something else, and that's why it came up on my feed. But it was sort of perfectly timed because I had been really struggling with just a lot of different issues. My weight was one I'd been yo-yo dieting my whole life, like since the age of 15. Like that sort of, I'm only 5 pounds underweight. I need to be 10 pounds underweight. And so I need to do the Scarsdale diet. And that kicked it off. And so that yo-yo up and down. And I had tried everything over the course of my whole life because everything works for a little while and then it stops working because you can't sustain it, because you feel like in the back of your mind the whole time you're eating in that sort of semi-deprived way, role playing someone who likes salads. And you so because let's face it, I can admit that now, but at the time you feel like this is how I'm supposed to feel. Salads are supposed to, I'm a salad person now, and I exercise and eat salads and lots of vegetables and feel like crap. But I don't admit that part to myself because that just, I feel like that part is me being a failure. But in the back of my mind, I'm like looking at the calendar, like, when can I stop doing this and be skinny so I can eat normally, which doesn't make any sense. So I've been doing that back and forth thinking, well, if I found the right diet, then I could lose the weight and I just don't have any discipline. So it was like, if I found the right diet, that I can overcome my discipline problems. And so that was going on in the background. Meanwhile, gaining. Every time I lost weight, I would gain it back. And kind of the worst, I guess my bottom in terms of that was when I did Optifast. And I had seen a thing online, something that was like, this medically approved liquid diet, because people who, when they do counseling at the same time while they're on it, then they don't gain the weight back. And so I thought, well, there it is. There's the permission I need to do that one. And I lost a lot of weight really fast. And then the second I stopped those shakes, it was like I exploded back up and more, as I always had. Right. So I was miserable. I was, how old was I at the time? I'm 63. And so this would be like 3 years ago, 2 years ago. Yeah. Yeah. 2.5 years ago. And I was really feeling like a very heavy person. Like I was having the things where I was doing what I call the old lady noises when you move. When you get out of a chair and you go, oh, like that, or you turn the steering wheel in the car and you go, that kind of stuff. And I thought, I have got to stop doing this, but I couldn't, because it was just kind of an effort to move through the world. And I thought, well, this is getting old. That's what's happening to me, and lots of other indications of getting old. I've got the osteoarthritis in the hands is pretty crazy, and the knees were starting to do weird things, like getting the weird click in my right knee, where my knee would like go backwards too far. It's kind of like the joint wasn't working properly. Somebody told me that was like the way into needing to have that surgery, that knee surgery someday, ACL surgery or something. And I was like, oh my God. So those things were all starting to happen. And when I had gained back all this weight doing that liquid diet, I sort of reached the point where I went, I can't do this anymore. I cannot do the weight loss that results in a rebound back up even higher, because I'll just keep getting bigger and bigger as I get older and older. And it's getting harder and harder to carry around that extra weight for a lot of reasons: mental, emotional, physical, stamina, everything. So I decided I'm not doing any more extreme diets, no more. I have to see if I can find a way to eat that is sustainable. And I had no idea what that would be. I didn't even know if that was possible. And I remember listening to a guy, a doctor, I can't remember his name, but it was on the Diary of a CEO podcast. And he was talking about this whole thing about the sort of the weight set point and how what happens to our metabolism when you restrict your calories, and your metabolism has to adjust by lowering because you're in this feast and famine cycle, right? So um, I listened to him basically have no ideas about he basically, I think at some point, and I went back and I scrubbed through it and looked for the moment where he said, there's nothing you can do once you've completely messed up your metabolism. And he talked about people being sort of like weighing 300 pounds and eating 800 calories, which is nothing, and not losing any weight. And that was because your metabolism is so suppressed, just trying to keep you alive. And it was almost like he was saying, so don't make that mistake. And I'm like, I made that mistake. It's too late. I mean, I'm screwed. I'm 60 years old or 61 or whatever at the time, and just going, okay, well, I had no idea that that's what I was doing. It's too late. There's no do over for me. And then I started to kind of listen to, maybe because I watched that podcast, then another one popped up. So as toxic as the YouTube algorithm can be, it can be amazing too. And it certainly was in my carnivore journey, because I guess YouTube figured out that I wanted to know about sort of metabolic health, maybe. And so it started sending me people like Dr. Jason Fung, and I started listening, and then Andrew Huberman, and listening to people talk about metabolism and gut microbiome and all these different things. So I was just absorbing for about a year as much information as I could, just looking for some clue that maybe I could reverse this metabolic thing that I had done to myself. And the only thing that I could find that gave me even the slightest bit of hope was just I didn't know if it was possible, which was that there was some research that if you could lose 10 pounds in 6 months and then stop losing weight and then just maintain for 6 months, and then you could lose 10 more pounds and then stop, and it was just this. I mean, I had like 40 pounds to lose. And so we're talking years, and I had not been able to stay on any particular diet for more than 6 weeks at a time in my life. I just went, if that does work, how can I do that? Like, that's not how I'm built, that I can sustain a program like that. And I didn't even know how I could lose the weight, because if I don't do any extreme diet, what is there for me to do? So just around this time is when I saw Mikhaila Peterson's interview. Then I remember her saying that she lost like 3 pant sizes in 2 weeks when she started just eating beef, salt, and water. So that intrigued me. But on the other hand, I'd made that promise to myself that I wasn't going to do no extreme diets, no more crazy diets. So I just kind of thought, well, that kind of worked for her. That's really interesting. I believed her. Absolutely. Didn't think she was making anything up. And then when Jordan Peterson was then on, and then he, or the two of them, or she was on again later or something, talking about how her mother went on it, and her mother was like my age. And I was like, okay, this is starting to seem a little bit more like it might apply to me. And I guess YouTube is starting to go, okay, she's getting interested. Let's send her some more carnivore related material. And I found the carnivore stuff really credible, really fascinating. I love the science aspect of it. Like it wasn't crazy hype. It was just reasonable sort of, well, this is what we're observing, and here's the science that would support that. It was it wasn't propaganda. It didn't sound like propaganda. The thing that really got me was when I would read the comments, because I would be watching these videos and thinking, yeah, but it's crazy, because we all know you need fiber. You have to worry about, having a healthy microbiome. And I would be expecting the comments to be full of trolls, just full of people just going, oh my God, you're going to drop dead, on and on. And what I found instead was that these comments were full of people saying, yeah, I've been doing it for 5 years. I've never felt better. And I was like, what? That must be an outlier. And then I would read down a little further and someone else would say 3 years here and 3 months. And it was just this whole community was emerging from the shadows, from obscurity, at least as far as from my perspective. And just like an interesting little side note, I watched Diary of a CEO. There was somebody on there who I can't remember. I think I've let go of their names because the information I later overwrote with better information. But this particular person was talking about how we need 35 unique plants per day in our diet, and that the average person only gets 5 to 7, and how that's tragically low, and our microbiome can't survive on that, and how terrible it is. So I went into ChatGPT and I said, create a recipe for me that involves 35 different plants. It can be seeds and nuts and vegetables and spices and herbs and everything. And it has to be freezer friendly, because my idea was I'm going to make a big batch of this and I'm going to store it in I have these little glass containers that can go straight from the freezer into the oven. So it's like the perfect solution. So it gave me this recipe. It had almonds in it. It had kale and spinach. It had like lentils and like butter beans. And it just had so many different things. Now, I have to say it was absolutely delicious. It was a carb fest. It had maple syrup in there. And the maple syrup counted as one of the plants because it was from a maple tree. It had 35 different plants in there. So I made a big batch of this. It was delicious. And so I ate it. Oh my God, was I sick. And I didn't find out why until like 6 months later when I was listening to all the carnivore information. Well, I had 35 plants trying to kill me. And I thought, well, it must be because I ate too much. So I'll just freeze it. And then, my whole thing was, actually, no, he said 35 plants once a week. I think that was what it was, per week, 35 plants. That's it. So I thought I'll have one of these a week. And then that's kind of my medicine. Like I'm getting enough fiber because I'm getting all the different plants. Every time I defrosted one of these things and ate it, the bloating was ridiculous. I was like a Macy's parade, like blimp or something, because I would just blow up. Like I walked around bloated all the time. I just didn't realize I was bloated all the time. This was like that times 10. And I would feel sick, and I was having kind of like IBS kind of symptoms, which I'd never had before. That was really freaky because suddenly I'm thinking of all the people I'd known in my life who had IBS and going, oh my God, I didn't feel sorry enough for them. Like if I'd known what this was like, I would have felt way more sorry for them than I did. You can't even imagine unless you've had that experience. And I thought, well, I had no idea why I felt so sick every time I ate one of these. And I would have like weird, like rashes on my chest, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, you can imagine the plant toxins in 35 different plants. So anyway, side note, that's me on one hand, trying to be a really good eat my vegetables, get lots of fiber person. On the other hand, really interested in carnivore information and listening to these videos and kind of starting to feel hopeful, because the message I was getting and all the people that I was listening to, and actually one of your people that you interviewed, and he was a guy, I made the mistake of trying to find that video about a week later, and you had done like 45 other ones. I'm like, which one was it? Because I didn't know you were doing like 100 a day at the time. So I told people, oh, I have to send you this really cool video. Anyway, I found it eventually in my YouTube history, but he was talking about endurance. And the thing is, he was around my age. I think he was like 65 or something. And he was talking about being a runner. He was a long distance runner. And when he went carnivore, his stamina improved and so on. And I thought, okay, the case is being built that this actually works not just for sort of youngsters that can do anything without any complications, but more and more kind of people closer to my age. And he looked really healthy, and all these different people looked really healthy. So after about a year of just consuming, I probably watched over 100 hours of carnivore content. I thought, okay, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to try it. I'm going to do 30 days. And it took me a couple of months to work up the courage because I still had that old brain. That was before my brain transplant, my carnivore brain transplant, where I was still looking at the world through carb colored glasses. And I was looking at the variety thing, like how will I cope with the lack of variety? And I was looking at I will feel deprived, and I don't, when I feel deprived, I can't maintain it. And how socially isolated will I feel? And all those things that now seem like weird legacy problems, because after my carnivore brain transplant, like I giggle when I think about those things. So what I did was I went into ChatGPT and I told ChatGPT, it was kind of like a whim to do it. I wasn't even seriously going to do it. It was just, you give ChatGPT a role, like you say, this is who I want you to be. I said, I want you to be my coaching team, my carnivore coaching team. And I said, Anthony Chafee, Ken Berry, Sean Baker, and I think I had Jason Fung in there too, even though he's not carnivore. Anyway, I said, so you guys, your job as a team is to coach me. And what I'm going to do is, because I had been such a consumer of carnivore information, I knew a lot of what to do. I still had lots of questions for my little AI team, but I knew that I wanted to do a slow lead in because I didn't want to shock my system and kind of just do oxalate dumping and, just minimize that keto flu as much as possible. So I said, I'm going to do a month of kind of ketovore. And over that month, I want to wean myself off plants. And I said, what I want you to do is I want you to make a plan for me, all of you, my personal team, that's virtual and fake, and I want you to kind of lead me through this process of what order should I get rid of the plants? What order should I do it? And again, I did it almost like a little like throwaway thing. I think sitting in bed one morning and typing that in. But what came back was so convincing. You know how people have relationships with AI? I was like, oh, I get how that happens now. Because I swear I had those guys all helping me. They're all, Naomi, good for you. You're jumping in. And it was like the way, they'd be in real life. And it's like, all right, get ready for tomorrow. So we're going to give you this week, you're going to get rid of this, and next week this, and next week that, and so on. So I was like, well, okay, I better start. I better do this. And so I jumped in and I told them, I don't want to be intimidated by having like the whole meal plan for the whole month, because that to me looks like too much work. I want you to tell me each day, I'll say good morning, and I want you to tell me each day what I'm going to eat that day. And that worked beautifully because then that increased that feeling, that illusion that I actually was being supported by real people. And so I totally get why carnivore coaching is so valuable, because it made so much of a difference. And so it was so easy and because I just felt so supported. And I don't think it would have been that easy if I was just doing it on my own, because I was still doing plants and I was still having carbs. And so I still had that pre-carnivore brain, but I managed to do it because I felt so supported. And then suddenly there came the day. It was a Sunday morning, and I was like, it's day 31 or 28 or whatever it is. And I said, what do I do today? It says, well, today you've got to go shopping because you're jumping into carnivore tomorrow. And I was like, oh, am I really? I wasn't even sure I could do it. Like I still had that. It's going to be scary. But I just thought, you know what? I'll just do one day. I'll just I'll do one day and then I'll cancel this chat GPT thread and I won't be bothered with it again. And that day was so easy. I just went, well, I'll just do another day. And then 5 days later, I'm like, well, this was like falling off a log. I mean, this could not have been easier. I feel great. I knew what to do if I felt tired. Check and see if I was dehydrated. Get some electrolytes in me, or have a little bit of black tea. I might be oxalate dumping, or have a nap, or am I eating enough meat? I primed for the first 2 weeks. So I wanted to make sure I didn't do that under eating mistake. Cause again, I was like determined not to kind of, do it the wrong way or do the deprivation thing at all. And that was really smart. And then I had this chart that I made online on Google Sheets to keep track of my progress. And it had like 30 days, 30 days, and 30 days because I was going to do 90. And I completely just stopped filling in the little tracker halfway through month 2 because it was my lifestyle at that point. I felt so good. I had so many benefits happening, but the brain transplant had happened at that point. So I've only gone back to my little, it's called Carnivore Year Part 1 is the name of the thread. And it got so long, I had to make another one because was asking those guys for recipes. I was asking for and I was asking for, this symptom. What do I do about this? Or, what's the whole thing with the electrolytes? Are some better than others? What if I want to make my own? And just all these, anything that you would, if you had a carnivore coach on speed dial, and I was kind of using it for that. And I mean, I know ChatGPT can be kind of inaccurate at times. It hallucinates. You have to be kind of careful. So I think the real deal of actual like work with, those people who have like, actual coaching and stuff is definitely more ideal way to do it. But I did it as a joke. I wasn't even thinking I would really do it, but it's what I want. It's what I needed. And I had been, like I said, I had 100 hours at least of carnivore information that I had consumed that I think made it possible for me to have a good experience using something like ChatGPT to just launch myself.
Yeah, wow. And so how long has it been total now?
Well, funny you should ask that because my 1 year carniversary is in a week.
Oh, congratulations. Advanced congratulations. Wow,
Okay.
nice. That's
Yeah.
awesome. And so you obviously, I mean, besides, I guess you lost weight and you experience other benefits that have kept you going this long.
Oh, yeah, the benefits just keep, I mean, coming up. So, I mean, in total, I have lost 16 and a half kilos. The last time I weighed myself a week ago, it was 16 and a half kilos. It might be a little bit more. I don't know. It's coming off very slowly. Like there was an initial drop and I have noticed the fat loss and then the healing plateau and then the fat loss and then the healing plateau and then the fat. So it does kind of go like that. I don't stress about the weight thing. So, haven't weighed myself consistently, just kind of periodically, because I could tell I was losing just clothes, getting loose and pulling out the skinny clothes and being able to fit them and then pulling out the other things. And so definitely the weight was a big thing. But the reason I finally jumped into carnivore was my arthritis because it was so painful. I was a television writer producer for 25 years, just writing 8, 9, 10 hours a day. And my osteoarthritis in my hands was so bad that my bones look fuzzy on a X-ray. I'd love to go get them X-rayed again after I've had been carnivore for maybe a couple of years or something like that. And I had such bad bone on bone happening here that I had to go to a hand physio, but there's no cure for it really, except just physio and keeping that going, which I did for a while, and then I stopped doing it, and the pain came back. That's gone now. I don't have any pain there. The amazing thing, so my hands, I couldn't do that. They were like this. My thumbs were curled under. And it was like I couldn't do any like Pilates or yoga things where you kind of put your weight on the flat of your hands. I can totally do that now.
That's
So
fantastic.
yeah, that was the big thing because I had made a pact with myself. I wasn't going to do any more kind of extreme diet stuff. My why, people talk about you have to have a very good why before you try carnivore. My why was my arthritis. I mean, I definitely wanted to lose weight, and that's what got me interested. But the why that pushed me into like, closing my eyes and jumping off the pier was the arthritis, and that's been absolutely brilliant. That's probably the thing that's impressed my friends the most. I mean, yeah, they've seen the weight loss, but they've seen me go down before and then go back up again. So I think it's the arthritis that really they're kind of wow. I mean, even as I press my hands together like this, I haven't felt my whole palms touching in years. So that's really extraordinary. In terms of the other health benefits, I actually made a list because when people ask me what I've noticed, what the differences are, I'll tell them and then I'll think of in the car, later what I could have said, and then I'll think, oh, you know what? I should have mentioned this. I should have mentioned that, because these signs of healing become almost kind of you take for granted. It's the brain transplant, the carnivore brain transplant.
You forget it. You forget you had the problem in the first place, right?
Yeah, you've done that too, right? With your stuff as well. Did you write everything down that you did you?
No, I wish I had. Yeah,
Oh man.
because, but it's kind of nice as well because when I'm talking to people in interviews, like it's like I get little Christmas presents sometimes because it's like someone will say something and I go, "Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that."
That's a good way of looking at it. Um, okay, so the arthritis gone, joint pain, my knee stopped clicking. So I really feel like I caught that just in time to stop that from turning into a big disaster. Here's another big one that had started happening. I started having slip discs in my neck all the time. So if I did anything, like when I was doing Pilates, where you lean forward on the reformer machine thing, anywhere where my head was kind of being supported by just my neck, kind of out like that, I would get this. I'd get dislocated or bulging disc, and I'd have to go chiropractor, acupuncture, whatever, and to help with the pain. And nothing they can do really. It's inflammation. It kind of just has to go down. In a year, I have not had that happen at all, which is amazing. That's really cool. Like my neck works properly again.
Yeah, and these are things that if you go to the doctor, they would just, well, here's some steroids.
Yeah, that's what I was literally told. There's nothing you can do to speed it up. We can do things to make you more comfortable, and it just the inflammation goes away. And by the way, it'll keep happening because that's how old you are now. So that's kind of depressing. Another one, there's one I thought of the other day that I had not kind of, I thought about it. I was kind of washing my back in the shower and I suddenly remembered that another thing that had gone away is I used to have a really itchy back. And if I had nails at all, I would like injure my back in the night when I was sleeping. I didn't even know I was doing it, but I'd wash my back in the shower and I'd feel like I had these little tiny scabs on my back. And I went to the doctor, I went to a dermatologist and I said, "What's going on back here? Like, do I have an infection or what's happening?" And she says, "No, it looks like you've been scratching." She goes, "Reach back and see how far you can reach." And it was my just exactly where I could reach back. And she said, "Yeah, do you have itchy skin?" And I was like, "Yeah, but when I'm awake, I'm conscious of not injuring myself. But when you're asleep, you're just going like that." And so I constantly had these and I was really self-conscious about them. I completely forgot about them. So that's, just that's amnesia. It's just completely gone. And I had forgotten it was a thing. Another one was acid reflux. I was doing in Australia, we have these things called quickies. They're like Tums, kind of little antacids. I was doing 2 of those a night. I could not sleep without those for years. In fact, at the local servo, I'd go in there if I'd run out And the guy who used to own the server goes, there's other ways to handle this. And he told me about, it was some kind of herbal supplement or slippery elm. He said, you could do slippery elm and that'd be so much that cleared mine. He was selling the quickies and he felt sorry for me.
So, sorry to jump in. I appreciate the use of the word servo, but could you just translate for a North American
Ooh,
audience?
of course. It's a service station, like a 7-Eleven or something. Yeah. Convenience store with gas. See, I was going to say petrol, but then I thought, well, that's completely translated.
Yeah, that's a mistake I make all the time as well.
People think petrol. Would you use that for like an airplane or something? It's like, oh yeah, no, it's the same thing you put in a car. And I bought those slippery elm things and they were disgusting. I mean, maybe some people can do that. I don't have the discipline, or the fortitude to be doing something, these huge horse pills that were disgusting and they make you burp this nasty thing. So that wasn't working. So it was just the quickies. And I had constant congestion, just constant sinus and inflammation down the back of my throat. And which is gone. When I eat butter, however, I've noticed that I get a little like, which I know that's kind of, it's a little inflammation or something. And it's literally predictable. It's such a bummer because I just got into eating butter, like just raw butter. I discovered how good that is. So yeah, I can't really do that. I can eat butter, but I have to be careful with it because of this stupid thing.
Is that any dairy, or you've just found it with
No,
butter
just
only?
butter, which is
Mm.
weird because butter you would think doesn't have as much of the lactic acid or whatever it is that makes people sensitive to dairy. And I've never been sensitive to dairy, really. Although I did a month of lion diet, 6 weeks of lion diet, which I can talk about too, because that was really interesting. But when I came off that, now my once every week or 2 weeks decaf cappuccino, because Australia has the most delicious coffee in the whole world. I might be slightly biased, but it is. But when I take a sip and it's like my whole body goes, ugh, I don't want that. So
That's interesting.
that's after lion diet.
Wow. It's almost like your body's going, okay, this is the stuff we want. You're finally giving us the right thing. Everything else is barred now.
Exactly. In fact, the only reason I did lion, I was doing great on just, I would call it dirty carnivore because I was having black tea every morning, just, like half a cup of black tea. And I was having some herbs, some pepper. Every now and then, maybe once or twice a week, I'd have like a Diet Coke and a little bit of sourdough bread, like once every 2 weeks or something. Like a friend of mine makes it and he ferments it for like 3 days. And it's literally the only time I've ever been able to eat something like that, and I don't get bloated and feel exhausted and everything like that. But it was really just every couple of weeks. Like I wouldn't do it more than that, and with lots of butter on it. And so I decided to try lion just because I thought, well, I feel so amazing, and I've had so many great results being on pretty good carnivore, like dirty, not 100% clean, but no plants other than maybe pepper and tea and a couple of things like that, and not even a lot of it. And I was curious, but it still took me 2 months to work up the courage to try lion diet. Even though I had a carnivore brain transplant, I didn't have the lion brain upgrade yet. And so I was intimidated and I had all the same thoughts, the restriction, the this, the that, is it going to feel too sparse? Like 2 days into it, or even the first day, I don't know. It was just like my body was going, thank you. This is how I want to eat. And so it was effortless. So I did it for 6 weeks. The only reason that I'm not still lion diet is just because I would say now I'm 90% lion. So because I just learned that that's what my body wants. But I've got the flexibility so that when I go out, I have a friend that we go to Chinese this Chinese restaurant and they see me coming and they get the roast duck ready because I do the roast duck with nothing. I don't have sauce. I don't have anything on it. They don't cook it in seed oils and stuff. And then I go to this Indian restaurant and I have tandoori. Everybody else has all these curries and things and naan bread, and I just have my tandoori chicken, which it has the rub on it, but dip it in some plain yogurt. It's great. So I just want to have that flexibility, and also. I wanted to make sure I get enough iodine because I'm trying to do that without drops. I went and had 6-month blood work done. And that is really interesting because I had had blood work done a year before, and I had had it done a year and a half before that. And I know the exact dates because it was the same lab. And so what they do is they show you your last two results before this current one. So I did that. Blood test, and I asked ChatGPT, my little ChatGPT team, my carnivore team. I said, what should I get? What are all the blood tests? Because I watched Jenny Mittich, and she's one of the people that got me into carnivore because I loved her like super scientific, analytical approach. Like, let's get the blood work and get all that. But I instead of going back into all her videos to see like which ones she talks about what tests to get, and that's the US. And I don't know if that's the same as Australia. And so I said to my little carnivore team, what if I want comprehensive blood work, what should I ask for? So I got this whole printout. So took that in, got the blood work done, and I learned things that have never been checked before, like iodine had never been checked before. And I found out that I was a little bit low on iodine, not super low, but just a little bit low. And then I found out that my folate was 0.9 instead of 1.0 was the low, like minimum, and I was 0.9. And I asked the doctor, what does folate come from? And the doctor said, foliage, like leafy greens and stuff. And I was like, no, you can get everything you need from meat. So, and I found a carnivore friendly doctor, by the way. So she wasn't being obnoxious about it or anything. And then I asked my little team, organ meats. So I'm working on that. But in the meantime, I got bought some folate capsules. And then somebody in one of the Facebook groups, the Sydney Carney Crew, said, you've got to get is it methylated folate? Methyl folate. And I looked that up and it's like, yeah, that's way better. So then I got that instead while I work out how to get like liver into my mince and things like that. And then the iodine, I bought the Lugel's iodine, and that is horrendous tasting. I don't know who can drink that, like with water, but some people love it. So it's just maybe getting used to it. I don't know. I ate cold bacon fat this morning and loved it. So, never say never. but, but then I'm going to try to do it with diet. So I'm starting to kind of just make sure I buy more seafood because I love seafood. But other than that, I think of that as supplementation. I have not gone back on black tea. And I feel so much better. I felt really sorry for myself for the first 3 days of Lion Diet when I was doing silver tea, which is just hot water in the morning. I just was like, this doesn't taste like the real thing. And then day 4, I was sitting going, this is good. And then I went, wait a second, this is hot water. And I realized that I had stopped feeling sorry for myself. I had stopped missing the flavor of the tea, actually enjoyed the flavor of the hot water better, and was getting all the ritual of the hot cup and looking out the window and kind of having a few moments before I start my day. So, but one thing that happened on Lion Diet that was really, really cool, my skin got like glass. Like I was touching my skin throughout the day, just going, like there's these Korean face mask things that people talk about having glass skin. And I was like, what's that like? Well, I know what it's like. Now I know for sure. It's like, it doesn't even feel like skin. It is so smooth. So that's a big sign that your skin is the biggest organ in your body. That's a big sign to me that my body was loving just eating fatty beef.
So, like now these days, you're eating 2 times a day?
Yeah, I've kind of defaulted to two mad. Um, if I'm going through like a really intense work thing, like I've got meetings stacked up and I'm doing um, some just a lot of online stuff and I won't be able to step away and eat. I'll try to eat like early in the morning before all that starts because I don't ever want to. I find I need to definitely eat before I jump into a really big day. I don't want to have to go till 2 o'clock without eating. And so then I'll eat kind of early and then I'll have something kind of halfway through the day and then I'll have something else towards the end of the day. But that's the only time I'll have 3 meals. I don't think I'll ever be an OMAD person. I think it's always going to be too mad, basically. And if there's nothing kind of dictating otherwise, I'll just kind of eat around 10:30, 11 in the morning, and then around maybe 5:30 in the evening, and that's it.
Wow. And how are you now as far as you're almost a year in? It's you're 51 weeks in. Um, like if you were to walk past a cake shop, is that or whatever it is that you really were addicted to before, could you just feel nothing walking past
I
those
see it all
things?
the time. I socialize. My friends and I, we go out for dinners. We do all kinds of, there's a lot of foodiness in my life. It just doesn't even register anymore. That's like saying to someone, if you go to a beautiful botanical garden and you're looking at all these beautiful flowers, is it hard to not eat the flowers? That's how I feel about carbs.
Yeah, that's kind of how I've like it's just like I can look at it, I can appreciate it like a flower. I can go, that's really beautiful, but I've
Exactly.
got no desire to put it into my face anymore, you know?
No, the people are always so surprised when I mean, I honestly think the best way to describe it is it's like a brain transplant because I remember struggling with carbs and just feeling all of those urges, all of the cravings, the emotional eating. Well, I thought it was all emotional eating, but I realize now that I mean, yes, people do have emotional cravings for certain things, and in the work I do, which is I'm a clinical EFT practitioner. It's kind of like a therapist, like acupuncture without needles and talk therapy kind of combined. And food cravings is something that there have been really, really good quality studies done, like here in Australia at Bond University. A colleague of mine, Dr. Peter Stapleton, has done functional MRI studies looking at the brains of people before and after that have food cravings. And what they work on is those positive associations from childhood. That grandmother that made you feel special by giving you the secret chocolate, from her special cupboard when you were in trouble with your parents or something, is like, who felt sorry for you. And now that's why you're addicted to chocolate. You don't even realize that it came from your grandmother. And so there is definitely a psychological and an emotional and kind of a somatic component to a lot of food cravings. And I've certainly gotten rid of my own things that I had cravings for. But in a larger sense, I realized that 90% of the food noise that I struggled with, which I thought was a bottomless pit of emotional eating that I didn't even know how much. So EFT is also called tapping. It's like where you do this kind of thing and tap on the acupressure points. And and I've had amazing results in I cured my depression with it when I first learned. That's how I got all interested in it and everything like that. And it is an incredible tool. It's absolutely so remarkable. But if someone came to me and said that they were living in a house that was full of black mold, and they had all the symptoms of living in a house full of black mold, and they wanted me to tap with them to get rid of all their symptoms from black mold, I'd be like, tapping's pretty amazing, but it's not going to be able to do away with the fact that you're living in a toxic environment. Well, I believe that our bodies are toxic environments when we're eating the wrong thing for us. And so there's only so much tapping can do. And so it can be an incredibly powerful tool. But a lot of my food noise came from the fact that I was starving, that my body was starving for what I really needed. I still had this idea in my mind, fat is bad. Cut the fat off steaks. Oh my God, if I could go back and eat all the fat I've cut off steaks in my life, I could just be here for a week just eating fat. you know, right? And now I buy them. The butcher knows. I'm like, not that one, not that one. He goes, oh, I got one for you, and he pulls it out, and it's got this huge fat rib. There, yeah, that's the one I want. So my body was starving, and what that felt like was that I had cravings, and that I was overeating, and I was thinking about food too much, and I was blaming myself for that. That there's something wrong with my willpower, or I haven't done enough tapping on my like food issues. Well, the food issues are gone. That came with the brain transplant. In fact, I used to think, wouldn't it be great if I could just have a brain transplant and just like, or I'd look at people who didn't seem to have food issues, and I would just be like, why did I get born with food issues? Like, what
You
the
know,
heck?
why did I pull the short straw?
Yeah. Yeah. Or, I'd be talking, I had this one friend of mine, and I was talking about kind of the struggle about it. And you know what she said to me? For anybody sort of watching this who's had this experience will relate, where that incredibly helpful person who's very slender and has never had a food issue in their whole life goes, well, I just believe it's about moderation. Everything in moderation.
Yeah, that's the friend that you suddenly feel like, yeah, I'm not sure I want to come out with you anymore.
Well, I did a slightly like immature thing. I said to her, I said, well, here's how I can help you understand it. That's what I should say to you about wine. because
Wow.
but that made the point.
Right.
Because she had expressed to me like, oh, I wish I didn't, I wish I could just have one glass and not like need a whole bottle. And I just said, so you understand, it's just that for you it's wine, and for me it's, bread or carbs or whatever. And that shut her up. If she finally got it, and I said, imagine if I said to you, listen, your problem with wine, you just need to be moderate, have moderation involved there.
Because it's a little bit like, just have it in moderation. It's a little bit like you're talking to an adult like a child, right? It's just like saying to an adult, grow up,
Yeah, and
right? And that's why it kind of like it really gets you.
it is. And also, the other reason it gets you is you've said it to yourself 1,000 times. And I said to her, how many times have you said to yourself, boy, I should just try to have like one little glass of wine? And I said, I've said to myself, why can't I just have one little half a slice of bread and not have like go back and carve off 5 more and decide, well, now I want one that's toasted, and now I want one that's, and it just perpetuates that. So that did get through to her. I mean, she did get, when I made that comparison, she kind of was like, oh, okay. I never had to listen. I never had to be told again, because she had for about 10 years been saying, well, I just believe in moderation. I mean, it was either I had to say that to her, what I said to her, or else kill her. And I thought it would be less illegal to say what I said.
So that just reminds me of one of my friends. She's I think she'd be 55, 60. And she's been saying for the last 30, 40 years, basically every day, I'm never drinking again. So it's, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so just on this particular topic, I want to go back to something that you said early on. You talked about you were trying every different diet, and it always came down to you kind of saying to yourself, this is just my discipline problem.
Yeah.
And I like this is everyone experiences this kind of thing, right?
Mhm.
And it's such a it's a sinister kind of thing that, we just get we're educated to kind of feel this way, whether it's directly or indirectly, right? Because you've got the food pyramid, which tells us this is what you're supposed to be eating in moderation. And
Mm.
then we can't understand why we can't eat the stuff in moderation. By the way,
Hmm.
5 slices of bread shows significant restraint, as far as I'm concerned, based on
Yeah,
my
well,
bread eating history.
yeah, no, I could do a loaf of sourdough bread in like 3 hours,
Okay.
like
Yeah.
from
Okay.
between
We're
that.
quite similar then.
Oh, bread
Um,
was my drug of choice. That's for dang sure.
yeah. But then, so we've got this, food pyramid, everything in moderation, right? And we
Yeah,
can't moderate. And then we go on a diet, and then when we're on the diet, our food's crying out for our body's crying out for nutrition and wanting us to making us eat more.
yeah,
And that's just playing into us going onto another diet where we've probably got to pay someone else money.
it is, and
And the whole time we're just blaming ourselves. This is all my discipline problem.
I a friend of mine about a month ago said to me, Naomi, I'm so proud of you. You have just you're looking great. You've lost so much weight. You must just feel so confident and good on you. He was just saying, good on you. I know I know it's um, like being able to achieve this. And it kind of grated on me a little bit. And I said to him, and he was being nice, but there was just like this low grade irritation about it, which I kind of suppressed a little bit. And I just said, I honestly don't feel like it doesn't feel right to accept praise or take credit for effort because I actually don't have discipline around food and I never have. And he said, "Oh, that's ridiculous. You've stuck with this. You've stuck with it." And I said, "No, I haven't. It's been effortless. There's been no sticking. I don't have stick with itness when it comes to my body. I don't. If it's not easy and doesn't feel good and I don't feel great, I can't do it." And he just was like, why are you being grouchy about the fact that I'm trying to give you a compliment? And I went and I thought about it. And it hit me that night. I was like, why was I being grouchy about that? I mean, it was a compliment. I said, why does it irritate me that I'm getting credit for something that, what it hit me? It hit me. I feel so bad. My heart goes out to my pre-carnivore self, all those years of up and down, blaming myself for not having enough discipline. My heart goes out to every person in the world that I see loading up their shopping cart with diet food, like barcodes and stuff, and they're desperately trying. And I just, and they're being told to eat the very things that make it impossible to eat the way their body would be finally satisfied, and the food noise, and they could just stop. They could just like finally eat what they need. And so, and I guess I feel not defensive. I guess I do feel a little bit defensive, but I feel protective. And I just want to go to every single person who thinks that they don't have discipline and who thinks that it's their fault that they're trying so hard to eat that food pyramid, the standard American diet, those little pictures of little groupings of dairy and little groupings of, those terrible little watercolors, photos, like watercolor, there's just, and you look at them, and I bought apps. My phone, I've just recently cleared out all the apps, portion control app. What the heck is a portion? What does it look like? Because my body's not telling me. So it's like, it's this much of your hand, and then it's this much of your hand. And, and if you make a fist, it's this much. I wasn't like needing apps to tell me how much to eat because what I was eating wasn't natural. There was no natural, just intuitive eating going on. And so I know that this is going to take over the world. It just is because it just works and it works so quickly. The only thing is if people, I've had a couple of people that I know jump onto it without doing what I told them to do, which is to get educated about it first, or get a coach, get a carnivore coach, but don't just dive in without any kind of preparation or anything because it can be a bad experience in the first like 30 days. And I when someone tries it and then they have some health issue and they just go, it was the carnivore. And meanwhile they go, I probably didn't do it right, but it was the carnivore. And it was just like, I have to just kind of take and just do that thing. Think I've heard you say it too. Don't try to talk people into carnivore. I mean, it's, I've shown people, like, I've had a couple of people that are, care about science, who worry about me being on this. And it was fun to send them my blood tests because, you know, the blood test I had like 3 years ago and the blood test I had 2 years ago, my triglycerides were 2.2 and 2.8. Nothing was mentioned. What I was told by the doctor on the phone was, you're fine. Your cholesterol might be getting a bit high. So you should just make sure you don't eat lots of fried foods and stuff like that. That was the advice. But I wasn't given my blood tests. I was just told your vitamin D is kind of low. But other than that, everything's fine. When I got my blood test at 6 months on carnivore, my triglycerides were 1.0. And I didn't know really what that meant until I went to my little ChatGPT team. And I said, okay, here's my triglycerides. This is what they were in 2023. They were 2.2. In 2024, they were 2.8. And now they're 1.0. Tell me what this means in layperson terms. Well, in layperson terms, in 2023, 2.2 was a high risk of heart disease. In 2.8 was a very high risk of heart disease. And 1.0 was zero risk of heart disease. Now, neither of those doctors, it was two different doctors, said to me, your triglycerides are showing that you have a very high risk of heart disease. So I was basically told, yeah, your cholesterol is not that bad. The triglycerides were a disaster. And so that was so sending off the blood tests to people and basically saying, best report card I've ever had. And I did a follow-up blood test when I started supplementing with the methylfolate, just one little capsule in the morning. Take it with my vitamin D because where I live doesn't have enough sunny. So it's D3 and K2, I think. Is it D2 and K3? Can't remember. But anyway, I've been doing that for the last year and that's really been great. My D is awesome now. But other than that, it's just that methylfolate. I do a little bit of magnesium. Sometimes I'm not doing the electrolytes as much as I did in the first 4 months. I think my body's just gotten better at getting the electrolytes that it needs. But across so many different markers, and anybody watching this who's done carnivore and done the blood tests will know the results are, it's great. It's the doctor was really surprised. Oh, the dentist, that's another good one. I go to the dentist and the dentist goes, your gums have never been so healthy. He actually acted really surprised. It's not like I had unhealthy gums, but I don't think he sees healthy gums very often. You know what I mean? He was kind of going, your gums are like really healthy. And my teeth just feel cleaner all the time. They just feel cleaner. Let's see what else. Mental clarity, muscles. I've got muscles, that I, haven't even worked for. Body temperature is just always nice and like perfect. I don't have to worry about, I can't wear that big woolly gorgeous jumper because I'll overheat. It's not a thing anymore. I sleep through the night. I might get up once in the night and I go right back to sleep. But I sleep deeply. I sleep like a teenager, which, I was told that postmenopausal, well, I guess I'm not postmenopausal. I don't think you're ever post, but I was told, you're just, gonna have to just sleep's crap now from now on. I hope you enjoyed your sleep when you were, before you were 40 or 50, because now you're just not going to have it anymore.
They've got some seriously good bedside manner, these doctors, haven't they?
Well, it's everywhere. It's not even just what the doctors say, but it's all the messaging that's out there in the world. It's articles on, health blogs and things like that they're just very helpful in telling you that what you have to just learn to live with. Another one, here's an interesting one. My hair's gotten kind of curly. Yeah. So, like, it's not really like I've kind of blow dried it this morning, so it's not really showing. But it's if I let my hair just naturally dry without blow drying it, I can kind of do this now, and it's like I'm getting curly hair. So after about a year, I think it's about this much kind of that it's grown out because it also grows really fast on carnivore. Oh, and the gray's going away.
Wow.
So when I get like the color touch up the foils, she's had to adjust the color now because it's starting to get darker again. And I mean, I've always been blonde, but when the gray was coming in, like it was sort of during 2020, during COVID, when I couldn't get my hair like the highlights done, it was kind of okay because I have like a light would had like, and it's sort of like this kind of lighter silvery kind of like I have to hunt for it now. My whole head was covered in it. And because at COVID, my hair was grown out to about here and it blended kind of nicely. And now she's had to adjust the thing because it's not, my hair's not growing out pale kind of gray anymore. And then, there's general lack of exhaustion. And another one was that my property has kind of, it's not flat, it's not a flat block, and I've got kind of three separate areas of lawn, and there's a bit of sloping and stuff like that. And for about the past 5 years, I've been hiring other people to mow my lawn because frankly, I couldn't mow the whole lawn myself. I had a self-propelled, battery operated, really good mower, but I would still kind of poop out after I could do like two of the three areas. And then it was just be like, ugh, I can't do anymore. I'd go inside, I'd be shattered, I'd be kind of sore for 2 or 3 days. And then maybe I'd go out and do that third one. And I started just hiring people. Well, my lawnmower's little self-propeller cable broke. So now it's not self-propelled. I have to get that fixed. I went out there yesterday to mow because it really needed a mow and there was rain coming and I had to get it done while I could. And I thought, you know what, I'll just do the front lawn. And then I remembered that the self-propeller thing doesn't work anymore. So I'm going to have to push it. And I thought, well, at least I'll just get the front lawn done. So I did it and I had so much energy. I did the whole thing. I did all three of them without any self-propel, just pushing it. No huffing and puffing, no sweating, no, I mean, my muscles were sore. I had a big Epsom salt bath. It was mainly an excuse to like sit in a really warm, lovely bath. But waking up this morning, no stiffness, no soreness, no exhaustion. That is definitely a whole new, just my stamina. I mean, what do you call that? Just that is kind of just stamina and I guess muscles, and having to push that mower uphill without the self-driving thing was really, really massive.
That's fantastic. So just another way that carnivore saves money.
Well, that's the thing. It is. And I've been kind of thinking I need to exercise more. And so that is something that I need to make the time to do some tapping on to get past, because it's always easy to do everything else and not have, yeah, I'll do that tomorrow. I'll exercise tomorrow, especially when I'm developing muscles that I'm sure I've never had before. Like I literally feel, did that happen to you too? Did you sort of notice that you were starting to have muscles that you hadn't?
Yeah, I was like, I was probably 6, 7, 8 months in, and like, I just looking in the mirror, I'm like, this is really weird. So it's not just that I'm losing weight, like my chest has never looked this big. My arms have never looked like this before.
Yeah, and the same thing's happening to me. I mean, when I've lost weight in the past, I haven't had the muscle building at the same time. And I've had people ask me if I'm lifting weights, if I'm working out, and it's not that my arms are bulky, but the definition, I'm not wearing the right kind of sweater to show it off. But I mean, I am just immature enough that I make my friends like feel my muscles. I'll just go, feel this, feel my muscle. Because I want them all to go carnivore. I want them to go, wow, that's so great. I'm going to go carnivore. And I'll go, mission accomplished. But there are things like I'll just kind of be, I'll put my hands on the front of my legs and just kind of go, wait a second, what's that? That's a new little muscle. I've never had that before. And that's really, really cool. And I think that in terms of the practical application and uses of muscle, that's why I was able to push that mower around so much on a sloped block and not get tired.
Yeah. So you mentioned your friends there. Have they've kind of did they think it was weird at first, but they're kind of used to you now?
They are used to me now. At first, and they all thought it was weird. They all thought, oh, what's Naomi doing now? She's doing another crazy thing. But this thing, EFT, that I do is so crazy looking anyway. And they're all just kind of used to, well, Naomi does the crazy things. And, it seems, and then they're finding out like the world is starting to talk about EFT. And I think the same thing will happen with carnivore. The whole world is going to be talking about carnivore. And right now, when it's talked about kind of in sort of broader terms, I think there's an agenda to make it look stupid, you know? And so, because it's a threat to a lot of people's bottom line, right? And so, but the grassroots, the grass-fed roots movement of carnivore, you can't stop it. You're not going to stop it. The people that have discovered this way of eating will not be deterred, will not go back to eating the other way. And then enough people around them watching their results and getting sicker and sicker and sicker, and then finally desperate enough, because that seems to be what it takes, being desperate enough that you give it a try, having those results themselves. I really believe it's going to be unstoppable. And so I've had a number of my friends try it. And like I said, a couple of them that did not listen to me and did it the wrong way. But I have a friend. It's actually a really, really cool story. I was meeting a friend of mine just over a month ago. I hadn't seen her. She's in South Australia, and we're in this kind of leadership group that gets together a couple of times a year and does, kind of inspirational day workshop, mastermind, kind of that stuff. And she almost didn't come because she was so unwell. And she's scheduled to have gallbladder removal. And she's 20 years younger than I am. And I saw her walk in and I went, oh my God, she looks so unhealthy, and her weight, but it wasn't just weight. It wasn't like, how some people just kind of look healthy, roly-poly. I mean, she looked really ill and pale, and just, she heard me at the lunch when we were all at the buffet making a comment that I was surprised that there were 6 carnivores, because in the food thing where you fill out what food you want, 6 people had filled out zero carb, ketogenic zero carb. I put that on there because I was one of the organizers, and I wanted to eat at this thing. So I wanted to make sure it wasn't just all wraps and crap like that. And so I made a comment to someone like, my God, like there were 6 carnivores here. Because zero carb keto is code for carnivore. And so there were 6 carnivores here. I was like, that's really interesting. And then I went and I sat down with my plate of carnivore food. And Kathy, who I can tell you in a minute what's okay to say her name and everything, she came down and sat next to me and she said, what's this carnivore thing? And I said to her, oh dear, you don't even know what you've just done, because you're not going to be able to shut me up. And I said, well, what it is. And I gave her like this little spiel. And she said, I have been so sick. She said, like 5 different things you've just now said make me think I need to try this, because I'm scheduled to have my gallbladder removed at the end of September because my attacks are so bad. I've got 4 kinds of autoimmune disease. My weight has never been higher. I'm on blood pressure medication. I've never been sicker. And all I eat is what the doctor told me. I'm eating 2 medical shakes a day. And for lunch, I have a salad and a baked potato. That's it. And she said, I'm doing everything I was told to do. And I'm so sick. And and she has 5 kids. And she just says, I'm worried that I'm not going to be around for my kids. And she's so young, like she's like 46 or something. So she said, where can I find out more about this? And I was like, wait, I got my little playlist of YouTube videos that I send. I've got a bunch of yours on there too. And I just sent them all to her, and she watched them on the plane and in the car. And I get a text. This was, we said goodbye on Saturday night. We all had a big group dinner together, and they watched me all eat my steak. And they said things like, what do you have with that? And it was like, with isn't a concept in carnivore. I don't need with. Why would I spoil this steak with a bunch of like, so she sends me a text on Monday morning. That was exactly 4 weeks ago today. She sends me a text and says, picture of a steak, and says, I've started carnivore. And I went, oh, no, 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 sweetie. No, no, no. No, that's too fast. You haven't watched all the videos. She goes, no, I'm too desperate. I don't have time to wait. And I said, okay, well, you've got to let me help you then. And I was already thinking of I wanted to start a YouTube channel where I tap with people on their cravings. Because, there are people who have that emotional type of craving that don't go away on carnivore, and they don't understand, like, why do I still, that big sugar diet thing that happened, and a bunch of carnivore influencers decided to try it, and it got messed up on it, and then really struggled to we're talking about. And I thought, well, this is where EFT can really come in handy, because you've obviously got, sugar itself is like just a pure opiate. So there's that too. But if you're somebody that has a craving that has an emotional component, then EFT can really be a great adjunct, can really help with that aspect of it. So I thought, I want to tap with people that are carnivores and they just have some pesky cravings, or maybe they're getting social pressure that make it hard. Just so using kind of EFT to kind of help them overcome those kinds of things. So I said to Kathy, why don't once a week we do a little check-in and we follow your progress. And we just filmed one today, which was her 1 month. She has pushed back her surgery. She'll be on your show soon. You tell me when you want her, because she's an incredible story. She had no withdrawals at all. So that's the most extreme example of my friends. She's lost weight. She's pushed back her gallbladder surgery and hopefully won't even have to have it. Her mood has improved, anxiety, mental health, on and on and on. And she just took to it like a duck to water. And she just says, it's saved her life, honestly saved her life. And then on the other hand, I've got the people that try it, do it the wrong way, jump in, have a bad experience, and then go, it wasn't really for me. And it's for everybody.
Yeah, it can be frustrating because you just want to see them get to about the 90-day mark so that they can experience the whole thing.
Exactly. And some people need to go longer than 90 days. I heard somebody saying recently that 6 months, for some people, and she was vegetarian. Kathy was a vegetarian for 10 years. So I'm shocked that she didn't have more. She did everything I told her to. I said, right, I'm going to have to be your, advisor on this. And so there were a couple of things. Like, she told me one thing. She said she had bought 4 lamb chops, and she said that she'd eaten and she's been cutting fat off, hardly eating any meat, but then cutting the fat off. So she ate this lamb chop with all the fat. And then she said, and then I cut the fat off the other 3 lamb chops, because she said, I just realized that the fat that I had on that first lamb chop was enough. I don't need the fat on the other 3. And I said, okay, you got to be careful, because you're doing the under eating thing and you still have old paradigm thinking about fat. And I just said, you need to be priming right now. You're in the first 2 weeks. You need to be intentionally eating to comfortably stuffed, or else you're going to make the under eating mistake, and then you're going to fall off the carnivore before you've had a chance.
Well, that's awesome that you're able to help her with it, because it is really important, because so many people go, as you say, so many people go into it, try it a little bit and go, yeah, it's not working, still feel hungry, or I've got this GI problem or whatever it is, and go, I'm just going back to the muffins.
Yeah, and then they probably have put it in their minds in the category of carnivore didn't work for me. And then when they really hit the skids health wise, it won't occur to them to try carnivore because they'll just think, yeah, but I tried it and it didn't work, or it was awful, or it didn't feel good. And so I want everybody to try it. You know, and you hear people say, well, it's not really for everybody. And do you have people that say they listen to you enthusing about it and they go, I'm so glad that you found something that works for you.
Yeah, or, that works for you, but just I'm not gonna be able to do that.
Yeah, and I wouldn't want to and everything. And so, if I could be the boss of the entire world, I'd have everybody go on carnivore, and then slowly, maybe after 6 months, a year, 2 years, or whatever, to see which vegetables, which fruits have, like, try one every 2 weeks, a new one every 2 weeks, just to see how your body can handle it. And I'll do that eventually. I'm not excited about it, but I think for flexibility for travel, or if you go to someone's house or something like that, it's probably convenient to just know there's no part of me that ever wants to go back to having vegetables in my fridge. Not interested. But it's nice to know that if you go to somebody's house and they've prepared their grandmother's special casserole or whatever, that you can go, well, I know I can eat that. I won't have a lot. I know I can eat it. It might even taste good. And it's not going to put me on some slippery slope, and I'm not going to feel sick and horrible tomorrow. And you know the things that will make you sick, and you go, oh, I can't, I've got an intolerance for, whatever. But just be informed, because I'm sure that people will still eat vegetables, but the food pyramid will be upside down. There will be people that just love them and they can eat it, but they now realize that they have to eat them in moderation, and they apply that red meat rule that they used to have to red meat, where it's just like, maybe once a week we'll have red meat, we're a bit naughty. Do that with vegetables. Maybe once a week we have some spinach. It's a bit naughty, but
It'd be nice to see that actually, broccoli in moderation. No more than 100 grams a week.
you know what? They talk about the upside down food pyramid happening eventually. So, I mean, I think it does. Wouldn't that be funny to do some, like, get AI to do some public service announcements that are like the old fashioned kind that used to talk about the food pyramid with the really janky, weird music. And Jimmy is riding his bicycle to the grocery store to buy some nice, healthy vegetables, and do like the opposite, like for carnivore propaganda. Um, yeah, it'll happen eventually because it's not slowing down.
Yeah. The only thing that makes me really sad is knowing that Popeye is probably still in hospital with kidney stones. So, but so Naomi, if people want to reach out to you, how is it best to reach you and find out more about what you do?
You can go if you're interested in, if somebody has like a craving that no matter how good a carnivore you are, you still dream about hot chips or something. Go to my channel, Craving Carnivore, and then you can watch my videos and interact in the chat and so on. If you're interested in EFT for other things, tapping for just everything else that's kind of not carnivore related, you can go to turnonthetap.com.au. So it's turnonthetap.com.au, and that takes you to my EFT website. It's just a quick kind of website to remember. It takes you through. My website is called Oz Freedom Techniques, but it's just easier to remember. Turn on the tap. So that's how to get in touch with me, and just reach out to me through the website. I have a little portal there that you can send me a message. I'm also on Instagram, Naomi Jansen EFT on Instagram, and yeah, Facebook. Lots of different ways to get a hold of me, and I'd love to hear from people if you have any questions about EFT and tapping for cravings that you haven't that get in the way of your carnivore journey, because I want everybody to be carnivore.
Nice. So I'll include links to your website and YouTube and socials below.
Okay.
Um, Naomi, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story, and advance congratulations for next week.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on. It's great talking to you.